Post-PC marketing is the topic. I'm Simeon. I'm from the trend spotting team at Moxie Interactive. We keep track of everything that's awesome that's going on in marketing. And we do some custom studies from time to time on topics that we think are interesting. But I'm going to go ahead and start out with sort of walking everyone through what it is we refer to when we talk about post-PC. Here's the tributary/obligatory Steve Jobs quote related to this. He makes the point that he thought that PCs are going to be like trucks because if you look at the evolution of the car, right, people got to the point where it was making more sense to have a compact car than having a truck to fulfill your needs. And then in the same way, the PC world is changing as well, where people are adopting devices that are just right for the sorts of activities that they actually want to be performing online. And then, of course, it makes people really uncomfortable when things change like this. A lot of people have to rethink the way that they're approaching different aspects of the industry, whether it's content, marketing, or just technology in general. So hopefully, this will make you a little bit less uncomfortable about all of that. But it's not the story of Windows. Typically, when I bring this topic up, you get a lot of people being like, oh yeah, well people don't really like Windows anymore anyway. When we refer to PC, we're talking about the personal computer, not the Windows guy from the Apple commercials. And it's also not just the story of Apple. Even though Steve Jobs sort of did a lot to popularize this idea, this isn't something that they own on their own. And we'll walk through a couple of examples of how other tech companies are approaching this problem as well. But it is a story of smartphone adoption. This is the latest Nielsen stats on smartphone penetration in the United States. And if you see the cohorts from 18 to 44, all of those are already at above 50% smartphone penetration, right? So when you're talking about mobile marketing or mobile content in general, among that age group, it's a smartphone. It's also the story of tablet adoption, of course. 11% of Americans own tablets within a year of the iPad launching, which is pretty nice, and the iPad is still the dominant form of that device within the United States, but it's also a story of breaking world records, right? So the Xbox Kinect has the Guinness World Record for the most rapidly adopted technology in history, as it sold 8 million units in 60 days. That record was held by the iPad right before it. So if you notice the trend here, it's that blockbuster devices are getting adopted at a really rapid pace in a way that it's probably unprecedented. It's also a story of changes in TV. 20% of Americans now have some form of connected TV, whether it's an internet-enabled TV that has apps on it, a gaming console like the Xbox 360 or the PS3, and then like home theater PC systems where you just buy a Mac Mini and plug it in and go. But it's also a story of the change of how the internet is being used in general, right? So if you look to the left of this chart, in 2009, the largest sector of internet traffic was actually just web browsing, right? Just going from website to website. And now this year, the most popular form, in this study they refer to it as real-time entertainment, but this is really just streaming video, streaming music, streaming any form of entertainment online. And the interesting +1 stat on that is that most of this real-time entertainment is occurring through post-PC devices, whether it's an Xbox 360, tablet, whatever. This is really changing in general, the way that internet traffic is used. It's a story of multitasking and sort of the way that the living room is changing as well. So another Nielsen study on multitasking while watching TV, you'll see that among smartphone and tablet owners, 40% already daily use those devices while they watch television. E-readers, not so much, but that makes a lot of sense. It's also just a story of shifting media consumption in general. So this is a graph of traffic to news websites over the course of a weekday. And you'll see that computers actually dominate traffic to news websites during work hours when people are being productive and visiting news websites. And then when they get home, And they don't have to pretend anymore. They can switch to their tablets and mobile devices, and now those are actually the primary devices that people are using to access news content online. But it's also a story about ecosystems. Like I said earlier, it's not just a story of, oh, Windows is not cool. It's also not just a story that Apple's really awesome. But we'll go ahead and start by looking at the Apple ecosystem. So this is their sort of post-PC ecosystem as it exists right now, right? You've got iPhone, iPod, iPad, Apple TV, and they've also got a new, series launched now, and this is really their first attempt beyond touch to really create an interface for search, information in general that doesn't require you to type, right? So now, if we've got these post-PC devices, how do we make it easy for people to use them? And having a conversation with your phone is a pretty good way to do it. Google is also really invested in this. Android, this is their logo on the left, is their logo for Android at home, right? Where you can basically, their idea is that you can put the Android operating system in any device in your home, whether it's the refrigerator, the toaster, your mirror, I don't know. But and this is really their approach to TV as well. Now that Android's on the TV, on Google TV, and you can launch apps within your TV, they're really bringing forward this idea of the TV as a connected device forward as well. And you can see this affecting the way that they approach their major content and social sites. So YouTube's changed. Like most of the people that actually, YouTube dominates mobile video traffic, which is really no surprise. But among the people that use YouTube for mobile, most of those people will actually end up primarily relying on the mobile version of YouTube for viewing it, right? And we also see, regardless of if you like Google Plus or not, or if you just think it's a Facebook ripoff, they've actually done a lot of really cool stuff with integrating it into smartphones, right? So you can set it up where every photo that you take is just automatically uploaded to your social network without having to go through a bunch of menus to just click share, which is a really nice innovation, I think. And Microsoft, hey, they're still here, yeah, right. So they're involved in this. The Xbox in general is really, I would say, a real focal point of what they're doing in this space. Like I said earlier, the Kinect is like insanely popular, right? And you even see how their approach to Windows Phone 7 now is really focused on gaming, productivity, and all that other stuff that they're awesome at. And on the right, this is actually their Windows 8 tablet operating system. So they're actually taking tablets seriously versus just putting a really pretty version of Vista or 7 on a tablet. You'll have something that's actually designed for that device. And Amazon is also involved in this in a really important way. I'm sure you all know that the Kindle Fire is coming out. They just announced the other day that Kindle Fire customers have 3-month free trials to all of these digital magazines, right? So when we talk a little bit further about the impact on print, advertising, et cetera, this is going to be really important. On the left, though, is the Kindle Fire, or the Kindle with special offers, right? It's an advertising-supported piece of hardware. We'll come back to that in a little bit as well. So, as a trend spotting team, we sort of look at all these things going on and we think, hey, how do we take advantage of that for our marketing clients? And earlier in the year, we conducted a study. It was 100 people. It's a nationally representative sample, of course. But we wanted to interview smartphone and tablet owners to really see if there were any early signals that we could find about how they were shifting their perspectives of computing in general and how their device uses and media consumption was changing as a result of having these devices in the home. So the first finding was that tablets aren't exclusively mobile, right? So in 2010, the big thing was trying to figure out how to implement tablets into your mobile strategy like it was just a giant smartphone that you were going to carry around. But we found that 76% of our respondents actually just preferred using their tablets at home. If you dive into more updated data from sources like Nielsen and ComScore, you'll find that most access for tablets is occurring over Wi-Fi connections and not 3G connections. which is important to note. But the real implication here is that as we move into this post-PC sort of era or whatever, you have to focus on the correct device, the correct behavior, and the correct media, right? So you're not going to launch like a really robust Foursquare campaign that's going to be targeted toward tablet users or something like this. Like, just because these devices don't have cords and they have touch interfaces doesn't mean that they're all the same, is basically the point. And here are a couple of examples of doing this right. So Yahoo purchased this company called Into Now earlier this year. I don't know, has anyone used this or heard of this? Okay, so basically the way that it works, you see this green button in the top left, this little TV. You hit the button and it basically Shazams whatever it is that you're watching on television, right? And then it checks you in. You can share and tell your friends that that's what's going on. I actually use this. I don't really watch sports, but I was watching football the other day and I used it to watch the game. And it'll actually give you like a live score summary as it happens. And you don't have, I mean, if you're watching the game, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's a really neat idea of how to think about if the tablet is being used at home, how do we create experiences that fit into the living room and really take advantage of that? This on the bottom right is my favorite example. So Sons of Anarchy, does anyone watch this show? Sons of Anarchy? Okay, so they just released a tablet app. I think this is kind of a crazy idea for a show like this, but bear with me. So you'll see, I don't know if you can see this in the image or not, but Ron Perlman is giving Katie Seagal a really nice kiss, and he's got this really badass skull ring on his finger, right? So Sons of Anarchy decided, let's develop an app that'll sync up with what's going on in the show. And if you think that that skull ring is really badass, you can actually purchase it directly from your tablet while you're watching the show, right? So if you're really into biker fashion, I would suggest that you download this app and watch Sons of Anarchy to help you out with your shopping. But this is a really good idea that can be applied across other content types. I mean, I think there are other shows like probably Gossip Girl or Project Runway or something where this makes a bit more sense. But it's a good example of a company trying to figure out a way to take advantage of this like tablet use at home, right? So leapfrogging to post-PC, right? So among our respondents, I would assume that most of them did have laptops and PCs, so these aren't the leapfroggers necessarily. But since they did already have smartphones and tablets, 75% of them said that they preferred using these devices already. Another Pew Internet study that came out earlier this year talked about how 25% of people in the United States use their smartphone as their primary, if not only, means of internet access. So this is a real precursor to the future, right? And I know that a lot of the time when we discuss this, we focus very narrowly on the United States. But if you think of the way that computing is adopted in foreign countries and especially bottom of the pyramid type strategies, these sorts of devices are really going to play a more important role in people's lives than a PC is worldwide. It also points to the importance of designing for mobile first. This has sort of become a design mantra that I've heard from time to time, but like really thinking about when you design a product, design it for mobile because it forces you to think really lean, forces you to focus on the user experience, making it as frictionless as possible, which is good no matter where you decide to put the experience after you've designed it for mobile. And it also points to sort of a fledgling idea that these devices eventually will become not just media consumption devices, but also media creation devices, right? So I think Forrester actually categorizes iPads and Android tablets as media tablets. But I think when we see more people in the workplace, so for example, right, so white collar jobs, you're sitting at a desk, you've got a laptop and a PC. A lot of blue collar jobs, we wouldn't normally think of operating the same way, or they've got like these really bulky specialist devices just for their industry. But this is going to change, right? Like a lot more enterprises are adopting tablets in their workforce, and that's going to change how people really push up against the boundaries of what it is they're able to create on a tablet or a smartphone, and then designers and developers creating solutions for people that really want to push it beyond just watching Netflix. Here are a couple of really cool examples. I really like the Delta app because, if nothing else, it's a great example of how you can go through the entire booking process without really needing a PC, right? Like you can go through the entire Delta experience now without having to sit down at a laptop, PC, or go to a travel agency if you're old school. But like, you can buy everything and then just have your ticket scanned at the gate directly on your phone and walk in. Very cool. And to sort of support this media creation idea that I pitched earlier, Gorillaz, their latest album, The Fall, was actually entirely created on iPads using only iPad apps. And if you search for it on like Engadget or something, they'll give you the list of apps. It's like 15 really pretty cool like sampling and remixing apps. And they ended up, I don't know, it's just a really neat idea, sorry. The other thing that we found is that post-PC sort of trumps print, right? So 85% of our respondents preferred reading on smartphones and tablets to reading online and on magazines and whatnot. So this really ends up turning into an area where we think of post-PC as post-print, post-TV, and post-radio, right? So the smartphone or the iPod as like the post-radio device. A connected TV, still a large display, but it's a very different experience from the traditional TV experience. And then also, with the tablet, really thinking about how the magazines and newspapers are changing in general, right? So yeah, the print industry is changing, and we really need to reevaluate the way that we think about and view print advertising in general. Do any of you read like the Wired app? I mean, any magazine apps on an iPad? Are you impressed at all with the advertisements that you see, or are they just static typically? Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's boring, and we need to reevaluate that. Point 3. All right. And here's an example just a few weeks ago with the new iOS update, right? They launched the newsstand so it would be easier for people to discover magazines and newspapers. And Condé Nast has already seen a 268% jump in digital subscriptions through tablets over what they had seen just 8 weeks before that, and then 142% jump in sales for single issues, which is pretty encouraging as well. And then another thing we asked our respondents about was location-based advertising, right? And not surprisingly, 93% of them preferred to get a location-based ad. If you think about it, in real terms, I'd much rather get an ad for a company that's nearby than one that's not. It's sort of a no-duh idea, right? But people really do prefer these sorts of things, but we can actually use this as a basis for thinking beyond GPS and looking at all the sensors that are sort of available in these devices to sort of create new experiences, right? So of course GPS is your friend, but thinking about time-sensitive deals and time-sensitive offers, you can use the clock now to integrate that into your campaign to create real-time results. Even just like the accelerometer, right? So like these really boring print ads that are in iPad magazines could just be changed by having like, tilt your device. It's fun, it's different, and it's a bit more engaging. And just thinking about the new ways that we can search for things, right? Like everything in the world is a search string now. If you can take an image of it, you can search for it. You see that with Google goggles. If you can hear it, you can search for it. Every piece of audio is a search string now, whether it's through speech recognition or an app like Shazam, right? As long as there's an index of video, photos, and audio, there's a way to search for it. So a couple of this like context is important examples. I don't really like the Groupon, whatever, because I buy them and then I don't use them. But this approach is sort of a good combination of LBS and this time-sensitive idea as well, right? So not only are we going to show you places that are nearby that have deals, but this deal only lasts for an hour, so you need to go get it right now. And this is like, if you think of the way that like some restaurants or businesses have complained about the way that their Groupon deals have worked out, right? This is sort of an even more effective way of making sure like, oh, we're in like a low business period for the next couple of hours, let's flip on a deal and see if we get a bit more traffic than we normally would, right? And then just back to the point of like everything being a search string, Shazam now, I don't know if you've seen any ads that have the Shazam logo in the bottom of it so that you can Shazam the ad and have more content delivered. So if you're really into Flo, the progressive lady, you can get free downloads from her now through Shazam, which is really cool. You can call for a free quote, and you can hang out with her on Facebook. These are all, it's like the companies that do this, it's sort of like a weird idea right now, or it sounds like really hokey or lame, honestly, but like, there's a lot of potential there. And I think that there's just not a lot of the right thinking going behind a lot of this, so. On to the next result. Ad-supported hardware. So I mentioned earlier the Amazon Kindle with special offers. That's the only device that we had seen up to now that had actually used the promise of, I was about to say threat, of constant advertising on your device in order to lower the price point for the initial purchase, right? So you get $30, $20 or $30 knocked off, and you get an ad every day that you have to sit through before you start reading. But it's also a really cool idea. A few years ago, I think Apple actually filed a patent for like an advertising-supported version of an operating system in general. I would assume that Google's really interested in doing something like that. But we can also look to something like Nike Plus. When that initially launched, right? Just the idea that, any company could have made that little doohickey that went in the Nike shoes, right? But it was a real opportunity for them to differentiate and get their branding out there, showing that we can integrate with these devices. And I would assume, too, that it was a bit cheaper than normal because, it had Nike's logo all over it, right? And also, too, just not really restricting what it is when we talk about post-PC devices. Like, I know we've talked about e-readers, tablets, TVs, smartphones, but also just thinking for really specialized apps. So, like, for fitness, maybe a healthcare provider would like to subsidize the cost of a Fitbit or something like this. And these other sorts of devices that will arise in verticals, this is an opportunity for advertisers. So I have to admit, though, that with these Amazon Kindle with special offers, Ad Age just ran an article the other day that said that the largest advertiser on this platform is Amazon. But I'm going to show you an example of how that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So after the initial rush of like Buick and Olay and all these people being like, we want to be first on the Amazon Kindle special offers, they all abandoned it now that they got their innovation credit out of it, and ABC stepped in. They launched the show Revenge. Does anyone watch the show Revenge? All right. So what they did is they ran the advertisements on the Amazon Kindle, and instead of just having an ad or like driving you to some weird website or something, they actually let you download the script for the first show. So that's like a nice blend of the content that is appropriate for an ebook reader, really having like smart advertising support behind it, right? And then one of the final things that we found, and I don't know how surprising this will be to anyone that works in marketing, but we should really try harder. 62% of the people said that they enjoyed viewing ads on smartphones and tablets. I don't really know what their qualifier for enjoyment was, but it's still relatively low. And I think that the promise of platforms like the iAd, Gray Stripes ads, and different things like this really presented an opportunity to create innovative experiences on these devices, but what we end up getting is, hey, let's just take that 30-second spot that we dumped a bunch of money into and throw it on as many devices as we can to get the most value out of it. We had actually asked as well if people enjoyed video advertising, and they weren't as enthusiastic about it as you'd think. But really, we need to be thinking about how these experiences can be more interactive and not just a static experience, especially with regard to print. Like, these static ads just aren't going to cut it, and they're not really going to make marketers look like they know what's going on as far as giving people value for money on these cool new devices that they have. And also, if you've looked at the actual ad ecosystem on apps right now, it's really it's a lot of just cross-promotion of other apps, right? Like, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, I wonder why I never see like an Angry Birds commercial, but you don't really need one, first of all, because everyone's talking about it, and second of all of these weird schemes for like, well, sign up for Farmville and you'll get $5 cash to use in this game. If you sign up for this game, you get 10 more to use over here, like, it's really noisy and it's really annoying. I'd really like to see us rise above that and sort of take it to a better experience for the end user. In conclusion, right, this is ultimately a story of opportunities on both sides, right? So for digital marketers, we now get to step in and flex our strength and show that we've known better than the traditional people all along, right? Which is what we've always been telling ourselves. So, now we can step in and say that, yes, that's a print ad, but if you add analytics into it, if you, pixel it here, here, and here, you can actually capture a lot more valuable information about the people that are reading these ads than waiting for the traditional, print advertising metrics to come through. And then at the same time, traditional marketers, they get their moment in the sun too, right? Like, all of these things that were traditionally viewed as digital, they are now getting a chance to play with, right? So regardless of if Condé Nast's ads in all of their magazines on the iPad are really boring, they now have an incentive to make it better and to apply their understanding of the print industry to really change the way that digital operates as well. So that's one thing. And it's just really a story about thinking about new approaches to marketing, right? So Dove ran the first iAd for the iPad. Earlier this year during the NCAA, it was targeted toward men. But if you see this Jumbotron thing, you could actually just swipe the Jumbotron and cycle through videos and things like this, right? So if you're brought something that looks like a static experience, and then you learn that you can cycle through it, that's going to be a lot more engaging than, oh yeah, this is just another boring print ad. And then again, Flow, whom I love, I just think that I don't necessarily think that the Shazam thing is the coolest approach, but I like the idea that we're at least thinking outside of the box of what a smartphone can be linked to when it comes to marketing. And then this on the right is a new ad that's in you ad from Microsoft. This is the ad platform that they're rolling out that's based on Connect. And basically I don't know how much you guys know about how the Connect actually works, but it does speech recognition. It has depth sensors. It can actually detect which colors you're wearing and all this sort of stuff. So that, one, opens up a whole lot of potential for engaging with your consumers. But it also just has things like slam your hand forward and tweet that you just saw this really cool Coke ad on Twitter, So I think that'll be a really interesting space for people to play moving forward, especially just given how popular the Xbox is in general. And then again, all those awesome tech companies I mentioned earlier, they're really cool and they really want to deliver value to you, but ultimately they want to lock you in, right? So the big complaint about Apple in the past was, well, now I've bought all these iTunes songs and now I'm just going to have to keep using Apple devices all the time, right? And that is the holy grail for a lot of these companies, to get you embedded into their vision of the future and signing up for their services because they can control that experience for you. And the interesting thing here, too, is that Amazon, with the Kindle Fire, is really just an extension of Google's strategy, but they've really just sort of upended the whole Android thing by reskinning it and customizing it in a way that it's almost unrecognizable compared to standard Android. So that just brings us for questions to ask in 2012, right? So how will this really change the way that people access entertainment? Is this sustainable? Is this just not a blip? Is everyone not just like, well, I bought the iPad, so I'm going to use it and feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of it? I mean, it's still too early to tell how long this will continue. But also just thinking about how people access social media, right? Like Facebook now is one of the largest display advertising venues that are used. But when you have anyone with an iPad use Flipboard or anything like that, so that's an entirely different way of experiencing that site, right? And you don't have Facebook ads all over the place as well. So, that'll have a real strong implication for marketing moving forward, especially within the social space. But on the flip side of that, if you do use Flipboard, it's amazing how prominently any brands that I follow seem to be featured in the stream from time to time, which is, I don't know if that's a coincidence or what. But also too, like we need to figure out if these new ad platforms are going to deliver results. One of Hearst Digital's main complaints about shifting to like the newsstand and everything is that they see their subscriber numbers go up, they make more money off of it, but they're still having a really hard time convincing advertisers to jump on the boat with them and support them. And then too, just like what other post-PC devices can we look forward to, right? So connected cars, like augmented reality glasses one day, hopefully. Even the iPod really is sort of an old school post-PC device at this point. But it'll just be really cool to kind of see how companies take this in a different direction. We talk about at NTT Docomo in Japan, right? They just created a garden sensor that you just like plug into your garden because in Japan people like having personal gardens, right? So you plug the garden sensor in, it's 3G enabled, and people can like get real-time feedback on like, oh, well, you should water this, and they sort of get like this personal consultant type thing. So they trialed that last year. And that's something, like just thinking of how verticals can take advantage of the spread of digital and the declining cost of computing, and wireless chips, et cetera, et cetera. So I opened with a Steve Jobs quote. I will close with a quote from Ray Ozzie, who was the former chief software architect at Microsoft. This was an excerpt from his sort of parting shot at retirement. But this is really what it's all about. And this is really why I'm very passionate about this topic, because it's important to think ahead and to really do what everyone else is ultimately going to end up doing, right? Like people are going to start thinking more seriously about how to improve these experiences for people. And like he says, it's not necessarily that it's going to be better. I mean, there are probably tons of examples of people having really bad experiences with iPhones or iPads and whatnot, but different doesn't have to be bad. And, we can really just take the time. I'm not going to ask you guys to actually close your eyes and think about this, but, if you can just envision a plausible future, not even the most probable future, but just a plausible future for where this is going, you'll probably have an opportunity to lead in the space. So that's my talk. Does anyone have any questions? Questions? Yeah.
I feel there's still a bit of hesitation right now in terms of purchasing from these devices. They'll see an ad and then, they'll go either, call or go on like a laptop in order to purchase, really. When do you kind of see that shifting where more people are actually using? I think it's probably a fear of security issue.
Yeah. Well, last year, was it at end of 2010, eBay did $2 billion worth of sales over mobile devices last year. We've worked on the Verizon mobile store app, and we've actually been surprised how many people will not just like use that app to buy accessories and stuff, but will actually use it in the upgrade process to actually purchase a phone, so you can go through the whole smartphone purchase path on a smartphone, which is really neat. But yeah, the momentum, a lot of people are going to be trepidatious about it, right? I mean, even like other trends like Facebook commerce or something like this, right? Any time that people have to give up their money information, they get a little paranoid. But I think that tablet-based commerce especially is likely to grow because it's a superior experience to shopping on a laptop most of the time. Like you can swipe and stuff. What's up?
Your question. The latest reports, I think out of Forrester, say that Q4 of 2011 will close with about a $60 billion online purchase. Of that $60 billion, the estimation is about $24 billion will be with mobile counting tablets and smartphones. So it's real money right now.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
I'll add something to that as well. Just thinking about how tablets are being used in store also to kind of check out. So even if you're in a physical location, like at a mall, you could still be actually checking out via a tablet or mobile device with the
$60 billion mark doesn't count, you know, somebody using Square or Go payments. That's another dollar that sits on top.
For companies that have low marketing budgets to spend on digital and marketing initiatives, do you have any recommendations on things that they can do that still keep that high level of engagement digitally, but still have a balance of cost effectiveness, aside from Facebook ads or?
Right, yeah. I think there's like a bit more turnkey solution. Like, just look at the way that like Foursquare just changed over this year, right? Like, it used to be a real pain to have to work with them on setting up like branded experiences and stuff like this, and now you can just go in and set it up yourself. I think as more of these companies get involved in really realizing that this needs to be as frictionless and seamless and low budget as possible, especially for local marketers, yeah, that'll definitely change. In the tablet space, since that's more of like a mass media thing in general, that's going to be a lot more closely oriented to like big media budgets and stuff like that. But I think in the smartphone space especially, like, there's a lot you can do. Even just the popularity of text messaging, as like there seems to be some sort of weird text messaging marketing renaissance going on right now, and it's like that's really encouraging. It doesn't have to be mind-blowing, it just needs to be effective, and you can do that on a budget, yeah. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.